know me, my name is Alessia Sebillo, and I'm the head of knowledge and innovation here at EASPD. Our team is charged of organize this periodical thematic event called Knowledge Café. The Knowledge Café are very popular online in-person events which give voice to service providers and users creating space to exchange ideas, good practices on specific topics in the disability services. Today, we will discuss about inclusive education and on how building inclusive classroom in primary and secondary education. So the topic is quite important, I would say. Before going more on the topic and on the agenda of today, I would like to give you some technical information. So the webinar is being recording. As you know, I mean, you should have the pop-up message in the moment that you connect. This is because we would like to share, after all, this event also with our larger audience on our social media channel, including our YouTube, where you can find all the past edition. All your microphones are muted right now since this is a webinar session, but for the Q&A session, we can also open your microphones. But first, put comments and questions in the chat box that you find right under the screen. Captioning is also made available. You have the Zoom panel down where you can activate it. So this is quite the full information for the technical aspects. Then going back on the today event. So inclusive education is a fundamental human rights. And yet, despite global effort, many children with disabilities remain excluded from mainstream educational settings or experience marginalization within schools that are badly equipped to support their diverse learning needs. This Knowledge Café today aims to present, discuss, and share knowledge, practices, and engage with stakeholders in a kind, meaningful way and dialogue to promote a systemic change for foster inclusive education. For this, we invited a few of our partners to introduce the topic. We have João Canosa Dias, that is director of RCL in Portugal, but also our co-chair at EASPD Member Forum on Education. And we also have other 3 cases from Belgium, Denmark, and Bulgaria with our partner here, Inge Ranchert, Heidi Gabriel, and Eva Boneva. So without further ado, I give the floor to João that will introduce the topic, as I said, and then we will give the floor to the others. So, João.
Hello, everyone. I'm just waiting for the permission to share, which I already have. So I'll be sharing my screen. I hope everyone is feeling okay for this coffee. So
yes.
I will get started. Greetings. I was already presented, but I'm in the double paper of member of RCL, also co-chair of Education Forum from EASPD. I must say I work at RCL. It's an organization which is turning 50 years. So the work I am sharing is 50 years old. So we've been changing the community already for 50 years. We have different services from early intervention to inclusive employment, and inclusive education is a very key aspect of this and within the community. And there's the particularity that we are from a small city in a rural area, and we are a very big organization, which has been shaping the culture of the region, not only of the schools or of the organization, but of the region. And I'm very happy to share that even historical monuments such as the Castle of Lousa, there's a lot of issues about making it accessible, making it for everyone. And even the mountain areas, you'll see there's some concerns about making it accessible, at least physically accessible, as you can see in the pictures. And this is because it's kind of a very inclusive community. It's a small place with a very big organization in the field of inclusion and disability. I'll be speaking a little bit about inclusive education, very short presentation, since I think it's a common topic for all of us, and sharing the experiences from our seal with some practical examples and hopefully some questions for reflection. Inclusive education, what about it? So inclusive education is about promoting equal opportunities and encouraging improvements in the quality of education for everyone. It's also a movement towards a democratic and inclusive school and a concern with the educational success of all children and young people. More than an educational movement, it's a social and political movement that defends the rights of everyone to participate in the society of which they are part in and to be accepted and respected in what differentiates them from others. I think one of the issues is that inclusive education has different meanings for different people. For the parents of a student with disability, inclusive education is really important. It's about the efforts that professionals and organizations are doing to make sure that their son or daughter is included. But maybe for a staff member of an understaffed organization, inclusive education is a very heavy burden. And for the other students, what is inclusive education for the other students? So I think in our experience in our seal and in Portugal, one of the challenges is that the meaning of inclusive education is very different for different agents in the inclusion process. And this becomes difficult. We mentioned that it's about everyone being accepted in what makes them similar and distinct from other people, and everyone being respected as they are. But there's a very important adjective here that's missing, which is everyone being expected, because it doesn't matter if the legislation is pro-inclusive education and if the schools have to receive all the students with and without disability, but then there's not a ramp for them to go into the football field, or there is not a sign language interpreter for them to be able to understand what's happening in the classroom. So this idea of you are welcome here and we are expecting you, it's really important because no one feels included if they have to go through so much trouble in order to be there and to participate. We've seen these pictures very much, they're very common. I don't particularly agree with any of them. I think, and I'm speaking out of experience from our seal, it should be flexible. Inclusive education is about flexible systems, open systems, not putting everyone in the same space or different people in different spaces. It's about making a space that's flexible and that allows you to make your own choices. What is more inclusive for me? And for this, we still have, I think, some way to go. In Portugal, before 2008, we already had what we call the integration. So students with special needs were already going to schools, but it was more like an integration approach. But in 2008, we have the first legislation that specifically mentions inclusive education, and there's the referencing process. Anyone in the community may forward a child, a student for the inclusive education services, and then there is an evaluation. We used to use the ICF framework for the evaluation. With the new legislation in 2018, we don't use the International Classification of Functionality anymore, but this used to be one of the theoretical frameworks that we would use based on an individual educational program. This should be elaborated by a team. The family should be part of this team. This plan will be validated by a council, a pedagogical council, and coordinated by the mainstream teacher with the support and the participation of a multi-professional team. There are specific options in terms of education in this decree law, since pedagogical support to a specific curriculum, assistive technology, and then before we used to have specific educational modalities. So if you had hearing impairment, you could be studying in a school of reference for the bilingual education of students with hearing impairment. If you have visual impairment, there would also be specific schools where you would receive a more specific answer. And the same for autism spectrum disorder and multiple disability and congenital deaf blindness. This was in 2008. There was some changes in 2018. This is also very important, and we keep this to date, the individual transition plan as students approach the end of their mandatory educational process. There's a transition plan that's supposed to support them defining their life course project with short and medium terms and making this transition step by step for a life after school. The problem with this system is that it was a labelistic system. You would only access specific services if there was a label, if there was an evaluation that would say this one has a disability, so this person deserves special education. And this labelism, with the best of intentions, was supporting a very ableistic system, which was changed very happily in 2018. In 2018, the new legislation that's currently the legislation we are using abandoned this system that categorizes students in the ones that need special educations and the ones that do not need special education. And then this concept disappears. We stopped having a special system for special students. We have a continuum of services and all students benefit from inclusive education. And the legislation is about inclusive education. And it's supposed to work based on a network of services and resources from different partners. That's where we go in, because ARCIL stopped having a special school back in the 90s, before any legislation was existing. And we created what is now called a Center of Resources for Inclusion. So all the students with disability would go to the mainstream school, and our team of professionals was, back in the 90s, and still is, nowadays supporting teachers, school assistants, and families, and even the coordinators and the school principal in the implementation of the inclusive education system. There's a multi-level intervention in education. So there are universal services or measures that are applicable to every student. There are selective measures or services that are applied for specific groups of students that need more specific interventions. And then you have the additional for the students who have more severe or restrictive conditions that really need more individualized, intense, and frequent support throughout the day. And this multi-level intervention is based on the evaluation of a team. At the beginning, we used to say this was like a framework for special education, but actually it's not. It's a framework for inclusive education. So every student with and without disability is, the intervention with every student follows this same legislation. The legislation is about inclusive education and applicable to all the students, not only to the ones with disability or any kind of special or specific needs. Because I think we are concluding that inclusion is not about finding different boxes for every different person and giving to every different person a different service. It's actually about keeping all the boxes open and allowing people to move within this network of services and partners so that they receive the best education they deserve, and that allows them to fulfill their potential. For some, it will be in the mainstream classroom for the whole day. For others, they will be moving in and out the classroom. And for some, they even spend time out of school in activities that are more relevant and more important for their inclusion process in the present and in the future. Experience from ARCIL. So low on resources, high on will. This is already tells something that we have very good legislation framework, but then we lack on resources to make sure it happens as it should. I speak specifically about our Center of Resources for Inclusion. We call it CRI. It's this team of professionals that goes every day from our seal to our school partners, mainstream school partners. We support children from 6 to 18 years of age. This is the age, the period for mandatory school. So kindergarten is not mandatory in Portugal. So we do not work in kindergarten. This would be the early intervention service. And after 18, they are adults and they move out of mandatory school. They can have vocational training, higher education, but we do not support students in this point. And we support students with specific needs that, according to our legislation, are eligible for additional measures. So in this pyramid that I showed you, we have universal, selective, and then additional. For the students with more restrictive needs or more severe disability, this is our target population. However, depending on the school cluster that we are working with, we do more inclusive work. And sometimes we work with students that benefit from selective, and sometimes we work with students that benefit from universal measures. So this is kind of in the law. The Center of Resources for Inclusion exists to support students with additional measures. In practice, there's some flexibility depending on the school cluster that we are working with. We work with 4 mainstream public school clusters. So in Portugal, schools are organized in school clusters, and we only work with public school. So from primary school to secondary education, we work with 4 mainstream public school clusters from different municipalities. Lousa, where we are based, Góis, it's kind of 20 kilometers away, Miranda do Corvo, 10 kilometers away, and then Pampilhosa da Serra, 15 kilometers away. So we have a big area of mainstream public schools that we work with. Our team is kind of a small team. We have 1 occupational therapist, 2 speech and language therapists, 1 psychomotor therapist, 1 physical therapist, and 3 psychologists. One of the psychologists is the coordinator of the team. And depending on the school year and on the budget that we receive from the Ministry of Education, the percentage of time every professional is allocated to the team may vary, but more or less this is our team. And overall, we support 104 students. So recently we support 104 students, but I would say between 100 and 110 students, this is the population that we are supporting. And this is where it's kind of difficult because we're supposed to support the schools, but then our support is given to specific students. So it's difficult for the professionals sometimes to understand how to support. Do I support the student, or do I support the teacher, or do I support the classroom? But this is something that we have to manage in our daily work. Different support modalities. We value interventions in the natural environment, such as group interventions in the classroom, whole class interventions, sometimes individual push-in intervention when our professional goes within the classroom to support one student in particular. Homeschooling, we have some students health needs, they are in school, in home, and we go to their houses and support them in their houses. We do a lot of consultation with teachers, school assistants, some training activities, awareness activities for caregivers and for other students, and the after-school life transition. But we still do some pull-out intervention. If we feel that the best option for the student is to come out of the classroom and have specific one-on-one therapy or support with our professionals, we still do it. And this is difficult to juggle because every time we take the student out of the classroom, we are not really including them. So one student should not be in the school and always going out of the classroom to have speech therapy, psychology, physical therapies, because this is not really creating capacity in the context, and it's kind of removing the student from the classroom. So we have to balance pull-out interventions with push-in interventions to make sure that our presence is not a factor that contributes to exclusion, but on the other way, to inclusion. So it's kind of a work in progress, and we are always finding different ways in which we can support the student and the professionals. And this is our reality. We're always pushing the rock of inclusion up the field. And sometimes we feel that every moment that we take to pause, everything comes down. So it's like really a work in progress and an ongoing effort. And I would say this is kind of a shared feeling. Simple, practical experiences and some simple things that have a lot of impact. One thing that we started to do as a whole school intervention is in the first grade, at the end of the first grade of primary school, or at the beginning of the second grade of primary school, we do a reading and writing screening. This actually started because of an European project where we understood that in order to identify needs, specific needs for students, we really need to use Dimitri. No,
sorry, it was a mistake.
Okay, sorry. So we really need to have tools to make sure professionals can identify very early specific needs and put in actions to support the students with needs. So we started the reading and writing screening. We found specific tools for reading understanding, for writing, and even for handwriting. And our team of psychomotor therapists and speech therapists, and sometimes the psychologist, will be doing this screening in the classrooms with all the students to make sure that very early in the reading and writing learning period, students with specific needs are identified. We then create specific information that we share with the mainstream teachers, making sure that they know which students are doing fine on reading, on writing, on handwriting, which students are at risk. And then we provide additional training and a very specific small group intervention to practice these skills: reading, understanding, writing, and handwriting. So we provide training for teachers, and sometimes our team implements these activities as a small group intervention. This is for practicing handwriting. This is for practicing reading fluency. And this is for practicing reading understanding. And this is an example of a very simple activity. We take like 1 week with the screening, and then we do the training, and then we have all the materials we can provide for the teachers. Very simple activity that makes sure that students that are at risk receive some support. And this is where inclusion starts, with very early identification of specific needs using specific tools. One other example, and
yes, last couple of minutes.
Yes, it's on a very different area. The Minute Top, this is based on the Hanging Out program, which is a specific intervention to make sure that adults with multiple disability have communication partners. So we use this Hanging Out program with children, and instead of having caregivers supporting adults with multiple disability, we have peers supporting their peers with multiple disability, making sure that they have opportunities to communicate and to play. We plan with the students how will we organize the activity in order for the child with multiple disability to participate. We implement, and then we evaluate with a group of peers how it went out. We're actually doing some small research project based on this information, but more important is the impact. Some students with multiple disability, they are always being supported by someone, but very rarely they have opportunities to genuinely communicate and play with their peers. I mean, you can see who is the student with a disability here because he's a bit smaller than the others, but he has like really severe motor disability and still they are playing. Again, you can see that there's a smaller student here but also playing with the peers. But in these pictures, you can't even understand who has a disability because they are all playing, they're all communicating. And this is something that's also very important. Play is also very important to be included because they will be learning so much and practicing so much when they play with the peers. And to finish, the Center of Resources for Inclusion was evaluated as a national intervention in 2015, 10 years ago. It's supposed to be an essential pillar for the implementation of the inclusive education model in Portugal. However, the way it's funded may be significantly affecting the operationalization of the inclusive education model. So we have an evaluation from our government. It's really important, but still, we lack resources, we lack funding, and we lack evaluation. A group of parents is actually organizing themselves to find that through a survey, there's a very complex reality, a lot of inequality across regions. I would say in Lausanne, we are privileged and we have resources that allow us to respond to our needs, but there's difficulties in implementation. There is no monitoring and evaluation. There's difficulties in cooperation among actors. So I think we are at this stage in Portugal. We are doing a lot of actions and there's a lot of results, but are we really achieving our goal of inclusive education? And this is me for now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I already have like many questions for you, but we will keep it for the end. So thank you for putting a bit of framework around the inclusive education and then to tell us about the Portuguese example. We pass then now from Portugal to Belgium with Inge, sorry for my pronunciation, but Ranskert, I guess, good, from the Catholic Schools of Flanders. So Inge, I give you the floor to tell you a bit more about how do you work.
Thank you very much. Your colleague is going to show. Yes, okay, it's coming.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Inge and I work for the Catholic schools. There's about 2,400 schools that are member of the organization. And we would like to tell you about the way forward in Flanders. So the next, yes, okay. This is the content, but you will see in my presentation that these are the topics that I will talk about. So the next one, please. Maybe some facts about pupil and student guidance in Flanders. We have a very strong history of two-track system, separated special schools and mainstream schools. It's still a big issue in Flanders. We have also pupil guidance centers. Every school has a guidance center, and there are 4 pillars in their assignment: psychosocial functioning of the children, learning and study, the healthcare, and then guidance and school career. Next to that, we have also independent learning support centers, and they are supporting children with special needs in the mainstream schools. It's about the children, but it's also for the teams. And then I work as a pedagogical guidance in the service for the schools and for the guidance centers and the learning support centers. So it's a complex organization, but it's very important to know that we have this two-track system that is still reality in Flanders. Okay. What are the biggest challenges in the Flemish education? What we see at this moment that there is a strong increase in number of pupil students in special schools. We have an increase of 13% in 4 years' time. And most surprising is the increase of toddlers. We see a lot of increase on toddlers for special education. There is research at this topic for the moment, but I can see I work in Brussels and we have a lot of telephones coming from regular schools, special schools about young children that are very difficult to handle. We have a shortage of capacity in special schools. Children are on official or not official waiting lists, and a lot of children are sitting at home. They don't go to school, or they only can go to school partial when there is support available in the classroom and in the school. We have a strong increase in number of pupils with special educational needs in mainstream schools that need external support. And we also have a strong increase in number of students for first grade of secondary education, vocational education, the so-called B stream, we call it over here. So we see that a lot of these figures are really very important to look at. It's difficult to change when you see this, but at the same time, we also have fine, inspiring good practices in regular schools in cooperation of educational systems, regular and special education. Okay. We have a new Minister of Education. The one before her asked to do research on the independent, on schools for all. And so we have a report of the Independent Commission on Inclusive Education that is putting schools for all very much in the picture. They want to, that the system is going to from one track system to instead of a two-track system, no more distinction between mainstream and special school, and really go at the end for one educational system. They want that it's high quality education. We also are convinced that it's very important. It's more than physical accessibility and a safe learning environment for all learners. There are three very important guiding principles. That is the unconditional right of enrollment for every student in every school. At this moment, for children with more severe disabilities, there is a conditional right of enrollment, so they are not sure of being enrolled in the regular school. It's important to have a rich curriculum, and it's also important to work together, not only within the education system, but also with other partners, as welfare and labor. Okay. So what the independent commission is asking is that there comes a support for pioneer schools to become schools for all. It's to trying out new organizational models, coaching and mentoring by the other services, and mapping experience to adjust regulations. That's very important. The minister now is thinking about how many pioneer schools they will give the opportunity to start. The commission is talking about 15 years, three times 5 years. You have the preparation phase with pioneering schools and research. Then you have the transition phase from translating lessons from practice into regulations and policy. And then the implementation phase, all schools should become schools for all. Importance of a convention between politics, but because within 4 years we have new elections, and if there are new political persons coming to be they have to work on education, we need to be sure that we can continue the work going from a two-track system to one inclusive system. Okay. So in our organization, so what the Commission on Schools for All, they only talk about children with a disability, and the goal is to make more to go to an inclusive school for all children, including children with a disability. But as a Catholic education system organization in Flanders, we find it very important that we put a clear horizon about schools for all, integrated with a broader vision around school dropout. We think it's very important that schools for all is talking about children with a disability, but it's also about children who leave the school without getting a certificate. It's also about children who are going on the street and are not going to school anymore. So we talk about a broad vision on inclusion. The next one. So what we have to do as an organization for schools and Catholic schools in Flanders, we are very clear at the schools for this moment. Our horizon is schools for all. We are working towards schools for all within 15 years. We talked about this with different delegates from different parts of the organization, with parents, with supporting systems. So we had a clear path with all partners to talk about it, and the conclusion is we go to schools for all. It's step by step and it's bottom up. So start with pioneer schools. We think it's not about pioneer schools, but about groups, because you work together all the time with other partners, and we have to make sure that we know what the indicators are to see if we're going forward or not. We use the potential that is within the organization, and we also find it very important that the schools working to schools for all are working together with the welfare system and work system, because at this moment welfare, for example, and education is not very working together, not very much working together. Okay, so as you want to become a pioneer school for all, we think it's important to have an engagement on the 3 guiding principles. And the first one is an unconditional right of enrollment for every student in each school. That's not what's happening at this moment. So this is a very big issue. High quality education, empowering teachers, a rich curriculum, and less individualization. And the school doesn't stand alone, the importance of working together with the other partners. So we think we don't have to go for pioneers of schools, we have to go for a broad network of schools that are working together to realize inclusion. They are not doing this alone. The schools can enter into the system from different start positions. It can be about disabled persons. It also can be about children who don't have a certificate of the school. It can be starting with children who have another language in the school than the language that is used over there. So we think that schools can start from a different position to go to schools for all. They start from, for example, from one group, but at the end of the work, they have to do it for all the children. For example, I had a school who was asking me some questions about language in the school. There were a lot of toddlers coming into the school who talked other languages than the language in the school, and the school had a big experience on that. So they were really open to that. They are really going to work on it. And then they told me, yes, now we have a child, a toddler who want to come to our school with a severe mental disability. It's not for our school. We are not going to do that. We only work on language. That's something that we won't accept in the future. We think it's important they can choose how they start, but at the end they have to be open to all children.
Inge, last couple of minutes.
Okay. Maybe we can leave this one. We go to the other. Some directions. Yes. Yes. We can take the next one. So the idea of our organization is that we would like to have 25 pioneer groups that are working together from mainstream schools and special education school to work on this becoming schools for everyone. We want to have material available for these networks, and we also have to identify the conditions for the implementation of schools for all, because, for example, sometimes the legal frameworks is not supporting what the work, but is a problem. When you see the hours that a teacher in a special school have to give is less than in a regular school. When they work together, there's discussion about these things. Okay, and then I take the last one. So what we are doing now is we want to have pioneer groups. We want them to say yes and not yes, but they have to take the challenge, and they have to make clear that they are working together and not doing this alone. A pioneer group, we think they have to work on culture, on policy, and on practice. For us in the organization, it's very clear. We want inclusive education as a strong river, and we think it's important that we take all the schools within this reality. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Inge, also for your, a lot of questions. I know that in my 15 years might look very far from now, but in a system that is completely different, to make such change takes time, and whenever we talk about children, we need to do things carefully. So it's, I would say, even quite fast and ambitious to do this change in 15 years. So, but yes, we will come back to you with the questions in few minutes after our next case from Denmark. So I would like to introduce AD Gabrielle.
Yes.
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 Hello,
everyone.
So
I think you can just present, and then I tell you whenever to shift to the next one. Okay.
Okay, good.
Yes. So hello everyone. I represent the Knowledge Center on Disability here in Denmark, just located outside of Copenhagen. And originally, my background is actually as a school teacher, but then I also hold this master's degree in educational psychology. And I have been working within this area for the last 15 years, engaged in developing and implementing initiatives that promote inclusion in schools. And today I am a senior consultant in our school-related issues. Yes, please go on. Yes. The Knowledge Center on Disability was founded 30 years ago. It began as a research center for disability sports, actually, but today our focus is much broader. We now work to support participation and inclusion across areas of life. So it's not only a school center, it's a center for participation and inclusion across all areas. And that is really a strong thing because we work together with our colleagues at the job center and stuff like that as well. Yes, you can go on, please. Next one. In the field of children and youth, our goal is to ensure that all children experience themselves as active participants in everyday practices. And we develop methods and knowledge that help create more opportunities for participation for everyone. So I strongly use the word participation and not inclusion, as that is one of the main things going on here in Denmark, that we have this shift towards participation and not only the word inclusion, but I will get back to that later on. In schools, we develop practical tools, for example, our adaptation wheel, which you can see on the right, We also visit schools and institutions to conduct workshops offering concrete strategies and initiatives. As our original founded in sports, we still see great potential in movement and play, and sports also, but mostly movement, play, and active practices during the school day. Because here we see that students, no matter if they have special needs or not, they develop social skills, build resilience, and learn about themselves and each other. And that we see is very important. If we shift towards our center that works with the jobs and employment, it also seems that people who were used to be included in sports and other practice during the school day are more likable to actually work with others as well in that concern. So yes, you can go to the next one. And here are a few examples that we are currently working on. The first is a digital platform where we work with embodied cognition, which is really important to include more and get more participation for all students. And then also sensory integration is a big part of including more children in the schools. And then, of course, the adaptable activities for all learners and teach the teachers to know how to adapt activities. Our newest project is inclusion in breaks for all children. And that is a project to ensure good breaks and structure, where we work with pictograms and other structure programs during the school day to include more children. And then, of course, we also have a lot of knowledge and theoretical materials in inclusion in schools. Please to the next one. So, and the main question I have before signing on to this was to give a brief introduction to the state of play here in Denmark. And some of the main issues are that inclusion is often reduced to numbers and placement, and that is also why we have a shift right now going on, not using the term inclusion, but instead participation. As inclusion is having a negative vibe here in Denmark right now. And then segregation to special provisions continues to grow, even though we have a focus on inclusion. Schools struggle with limited time, staff, and resources. So it's also what you said already. And not all teachers feel ready to support diverse needs. Still a thing that is highly concerned. Parents, they also often feel that their children lack sufficient support. And right now, the parents, they are consumers and not only parents in Denmark right now. So they see themselves as consumers as well. And that's a lot of pressure towards the schools as well. And then a lot of children may still feel excluded, even when we think that they are included or try to get included. So what can guide us forward? What we see, and also based on the newest learnings, is that placement must be based on individual needs and available support, of course. And teaching should embrace diverse learners, not just use the still standardized view. And then, of course, stronger collaboration is needed in classroom and across services and with the parents as well. We need parents' expertise and should be valued as a process. And then we have worked with this in some practical steps, and that is those short quality breaks that improve focus and helps the children to be a part of the school day. And then play and movement, we see build resilience and social skills, and therefore we emphasize on play and movement for all children. And of course, in the classroom, outside of the classroom as well. And then simple structures like visual schedules create predictability, which is also really important for a lot of children, not only those with special needs. It's needed for some, but it's good for all. Yeah. And what we see is, this is my closure statement, is that we need to keep working on our mindset here in Denmark. We need to understand students, schools, and teachers. From our latest project, we see that teachers, for example, values rests and breaks, but often view it as a free space without direction. So we have a school day, but we have a lot of small breaks and recess time whenever they have time to eat their meals. There's no direction, and it isn't valued as a part of the school day. So many students, they actually struggle here in the free time, and that distress follows them back into the class and across the whole day. So it's not just about structure and time, because we know that's one of the reasons why there's still a lot of the school day where we don't have any directions. But it's also about the mindsets. It's mainly about the mindsets, seeing school as one connected reality, and not as a separate practice that feel disconnected to students. So I think that was all for me, and then I of course hope that you guys have a few questions for me later on. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, you touched, I think, a very important point on the teachers. So we will come back on this also later, and with some more questions. But thank you very much for this very nice and clear explanation. So the last presentation for today is from Bulgaria. So I leave the floor to Eva Boneva, that will present their case on the shared learning.
Thank you, Alessia. My name is Eva Boneva. I work for the Association for Shared Learning, ELA, and also I teach at the university where I am now. I teach inclusive education to teachers and principals. But today I have a very limited time and just wanted to briefly introduce you a model of inclusive education. So what we do is the Association for Shared Learning. We used to be called Center for Inclusive Education, but later changed the name to expand a bit the meaning. Is that we support and train schools in building inclusive environment. We do research, analysis, advocacy. We help teachers and educators and training them in global and citizenship education and in principles of child participation. So at some point, over the 6 years, we came to the, please the next slide, to the model for inclusive education. And because the difficulties that every child focuses in school are so varied, like socioeconomic factors, psycho-emotional factors, ethnocultural factors. We have two big minorities in Bulgaria. One is the Roma minority, which is also characterized with a very high poverty, and unemployment levels, and Turkish minority. So these are the difficulties, and that is how we came to the model for creating inclusive school environment, which we called One School for All, not very originally. And it is actually a management model. It is a model of how you can organize your school around so that you can become inclusive in 1 year or a year and a half. So this was to help schools. We did it. We were inspired and we actually created it together with 5 partner schools on the program, together with the School of Education from Washington University in Seattle. We collaborated with some very nice professors from there, like Professor Dacchini. And of course, we consulted with the team of Faculty of Pedagogy at Sofia University. And all this program, this modeling exercise was funded by America for Bulgaria. And these are just some pieces of the pictures of different schools that participated, because with them we had a long road of conceptualizing what we need as a management and leadership in order for, the question was how one school that wants can become inclusive. Yes. And what we learned on in the way during this first phase, and then we had the second phase, is that inclusive education is not only for children with special educational needs, and we have to reiterate it every day. It is not only for every child in the school, but it's also for all the teachers, because we cannot expect teachers to be supportive if they do not feel supported themselves. And these are like the basics. And second is that inclusive education is never a lonely struggle of one teacher in one classroom. As you know, teachers would often tell me, I close the door of my classroom and I'm alone. It cannot work this way. It is a collective whole school effort and responsibility also. It is a responsibility of the school management, of the teachers and the parents. And then we also learned, because we tried different approaches, that the most sustainable and efficient approach to support schools in order to improve themselves instead of offering ready solutions. Like, we cannot offer them anything that is a recipe. They have to get there themselves. And the schools identify their own needs and prioritize objectives for change. They recognize the resources they have and they have not, and they share responsibilities in the wide team. And actually, we found out that the chance to self-assess the needs and to prioritize change objectives is the key to the successful change. Next slide. And this is how it looks, the model. Joao knows it very well. It has 4 pillars, 4 areas of school development or 4 areas of school improvement: the school leadership, of course, teaching practices, child safeguarding, and partnership with parents or with the community. So these are the 4 areas of school development. We started with 6, but then we combined them and reduced them to, these are the 4 fundamental areas of school development. Next. And the planning cycle, the model is obvious, and like many other models, we start with every school starts with self-assessment, then defines priorities, then forms a team or teams, then does the planning, which includes, as you know, roles and responsibility, who does what, how, by when. Then goes implementation for a year, and then monitoring, and then change and improvement. So we found out for the 6 years that we were developing the model that for a year and a year and a half, a school can change, given that there is a willing leadership in that school and at least 10% of teachers who want to change. Like it doesn't work with less, but with starting with 10%, we can. Next. And this is like the simplest, the spider web model. You've probably seen it in many other models or assessments. And for example, if we take the school leadership, inclusive school management, we have 5 indicators that when you self-assess, like a school self-assesses, and these are done in teams of teachers, students, and parents also, importantly. So they do this in focus group, they do the assessment, and you see school leadership has 5 indicators. Teaching practices have 7. So you can see here the example of indicators which define inclusive school management. And then you read the indicator, and as a group or individually, you decide in viewing this spider web. Like this is 1.1 indicator. So is it fully achieved? Is it not achieved? Then you leave it blank. Or is it partially achieved? So like where you are. So when you actually go to all the indicators of all 4 areas of development, you have a very clear, very visual picture of where your school is in terms of being inclusive, according to yourself and your students and your parents. And then as a team, you decide where you want to focus your effort. You can focus them on 1 area or on 2 or on 3 or on 4, although we do not recommend on 4 because it's only 1 school year. But we found out that even if you focus only on 1 area, the improvement comes in all other areas too. So you can see the next slide. This is what we had. We have a virtual center for inclusive education with resources. We have the online training on inclusive education, which is free. We give self-assessment tool for the schools. And of course, there are many, many books and many manuals and trainings for implementing the model. So this is the idea. And next slide. And then I want to show you some results, but I'm looking at the time, and I only want, no, I have only 10 minutes. So if we go, so this is how it changed. You see the orange is the national survey. The pilot schools in 2015 are in Burgundy, and the lilac is the pilot schools in 2016. And you can see that things changed a lot. So next slide. And this is for teacher support for students with social difficulties. And then next slide. And this is the teacher support for students with physical difficulties. You see here we also have a lot of increase. And then next. And this is teacher support for students with behavior difficulties. And here we actually had like a remarkable improvement because these are the students that, according to some of our surveys and the national surveys, 2 teachers had biggest difficulties working with. And then next. And here I want to show in the lower table, the question, who is responsible the most for inclusive education in the school? There is a big shift from 2014 when we started to 2016, from 30% who thought that this is the teachers and principals' responsibility to almost 54% in 2016. And this is like one of the big change of attitudes, big shift of attitudes. And I think it was one of the most difficult for our Bulgarian teachers to undergo, to actually assume responsibility, because we come from a very segregated, socialist system with very extensive network of special schools, and teachers are just used to think that different children belong in different schools. And next. So yes, these are some more results in the early years when we were forming it. And then last, probably, yes, thank you. I want to keep my 10 minutes, but I will be very happy to answer your questions. I realize this was a very brief overview of a big model and the work that still continues, but just to give you flavor of it.
Thank you very much also for the presentation. And so the last survey, the last data that you have are like from the 2014. Are you planning to do anything else to see how things have been evolving, or?
No, this is like the last ones. These were like the 2 years, 14, 15, 16. This is when we were making and piloting the model. And then we had the second phase till 2019. And there we have also a lot of figures. But I thought it is interesting to show 3 consecutive years, because I said you can do it in a year and a half. This is why I used the old data. Yes, we have data also from 2019. But
anyway, it's quite significant how much the results changed from one year to another. So, okay, so thank you to every speaker for the different presentation. As I mean, we saw there are also very different frameworks and legal situation in different countries. So it's also quite you know, we know that whenever we talk about Europe, it's never one unique thing, but there are many things happening all over. Something that was very interesting to me anyway is that all of you touched 2 main elements, I guess, that were quite transversal. First of all of you, of course, talked about the role of the teachers, you know, I mean, as important figure, of course, in the transition and in the support, but also how do we support teachers to not be overwhelmed, you know, of all the changes and the idea of going for school for all. But then the other element that also I think that it was quite commonly present in your presentations is the importance of the collaboration. So every school cannot do everything alone and should not be alone. Of course, schools are in a larger system, but still the idea of interconnection, the idea of collaboration, some of you discussed about clusters. It's still very, very important in order to make, you know, to advance and to make the changes. So while we wait for participants to share for their questions, I had few from my own that I would like to make. So starting from this cluster elements, Joao, can you explain a bit more, also looking at how this resonate in the other presentation, or how the clusters work in Portugal, and what kind of collaboration exists?
Yes, thank you for the question. So in Portugal, public schools are organized as clusters, so it's groups of schools, and they all work according to one school board. So we work with 4 school clusters. The school clusters may have kindergarten, primary, and secondary school. And our organization is partner of 4 school clusters. So every school year, we receive information about the funding that we have available for each of the school clusters. And generally, it begins with several meetings to arrange how the approved resources in terms of human resources, our psychologists and therapists, may be able to respond to the needs of the students. And here we find different formats: training for the teachers, maybe some activity, awareness and training for school assistants. And then we cannot support all the students in the school clusters. So we organize in individual intervention, group intervention, whole class intervention in a way that we maximize the resources that we have available. It rarely happens, but if a school cluster receives more resources than what they need for the school year, and this is very funny because I think it happened once or something like that, then they can communicate. They are independent school clusters. We see sometimes there's this positive collaboration and, okay, maybe I don't need this much time of psychological support, so I will donate in a way to another school cluster. This is very rare.
Interesting. Very interesting. And it was also, I think that resonates with like kind of experiences that I saw around, but also the idea of working in a team. You know, it's quite important because alone you can again not touch all the elements, and sometimes also the psychologists or the operator, they are overwhelmed with what is happening and they have no maybe the right a straight answer to how they should act or work on a certain student or in a certain classroom. So this idea of having a team with whom you can share and discuss and work together is also very interesting. And my question was how they work. So how often they see the classrooms, how they you say that in some case they tend to work in school in the class, but then some based on the cases they can also have this a flexible approach. So how they work as team and how they work with the class.
So as team, our team has a weekly meeting where they can work together, share information, do some troubleshooting. So our team meets weekly, and this is very important because some of them would not know each other very well because they work outside of our seal all of the week. So it's very important to have this moment to create some cohesion within the team and for them to know each other. And also, it's also in-house training because as therapists, we are prepared for clinical intervention, individual intervention. And when we go to school, the focus is not on the clinical outcome, it's on the participation. Is what I'm doing improving participation, increasing participation? Because if it's not, then I have to shift the focus. So this is also very important because of our different educational background as therapists, psychologists, physical therapists. And then they will spend the week in different schools. If it's individual pull-out intervention, I think once a week is the most we can do. What we do is maybe we have individual pull-out, and we also have some whole class intervention or small group intervention to make sure that we see this teacher and this student more than once every week. But then different professionals will work with the student and with the family. So there's also some transdisciplinarity. If I need to have a meeting with this parent or with this teacher about a topic, I will go as occupational therapist, but I will bring all the input from the team, and not only my topic will be explored. So it's also important that the team works in this interdisciplinary or even transdisciplinary way so that there's more proximity.
Yes, thank you. I mean, very, very interesting. And I would, we will have also other occasion to discuss about this, but it's very, I mean, key, I guess, not the way of working. And especially when it comes in system that are transitioning, and to make the teacher understand how they can adapt and reshift their way of, teaching and being in a class. And talking about this shift, Inge, I have I was very interested in the Belgian case, let's say, because we had the opportunity also to go and visit some special school here in Belgium. I mean, for all things that we can say, but they are quite high specialized, high in technology, and it will be amazing, but still very tricky and complicated to have all the schools with that kind of technology and approach. So how do you see, from your perspective, of course, the transition happening in Belgium?
Yeah, it's important to say that I'm only talking about the Flemish part because there are some differences with the other parts. So we have this long tradition of having special schools, very specialized, and regular schools, and now we are trying to bring them together to make schools stronger, all schools. What we see is that what other speakers also were talking about is we need to work on the culture of teachers, of communities, of directors. We really have to, because we often have the answer like, why should we take this child into our schools? Because there is a special school available. And I think at this moment, because of the problems that there is a lack of special schools and the questions are a lot and more, we have an opportunity to work together and to bring them together. So we talk about different disabilities. For some disabilities, we think that every school should be able to support the child and to give the necessary things. And then we think that of small groups, maybe we need some specialized schools in some communities. In every community, maybe one, and then children could have the possibility to go there. For example, if you are talking about small learning disabilities and autism, for example, we think that every school should be available in the future to support and to make a good school for these children. If you're talking about hearing impairments and visual impairments, we think it's because there are less children with these problems, we need to work on having one in a community, but also as much as possible in the regular school. We have a lot of, how could I say, we need to work on culture, but at the other hand, I'm working 35 years in this field and I have enough about people telling we are not prepared to do this. Sorry, parents are also not prepared if they have a disabled child. So I won't, I don't accept anymore these questions. We just should start. And the most important thing, we need a government that is taking the card of inclusion, that is really saying we go for inclusion. It's a bit not sure with this minister, but it's sure that the Commission for all schools for all is very clear. And we all know that 15 years is not very much time to work on things, but we need to start, we need to go on and not only talking about it. It's not for me, there is a special school. So yes. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah, I mean, it's still always an open question, because of course, as you were saying, if there is not the volunteer of making the changes and push, of course, it's can be scaring, especially for the parents and less probably for the children, but we need to be prepared, and we cannot prepare all the scenarios. So we have to start somewhere. So it's good that at least there is we are making the first steps. Thank you very much. And going back on the teachers, I had also a question for Heidi. I wanted to understand more how you collaborate with teachers and what, in your opinion, we should. I mean, we know, of course, they are the main tool, let's say, in the schools. But also, what do you think we should expect or shouldn't expect from them, and how also other kind of actors can support the inclusivity in the schools, inclusion in schools?
Yes. first of all, I think that we cannot expect anything from the teachers without without all the other factors
put in place.
now. Yeah, now we also need to we work not only with the teachers but with the communities as well, and with the we have like areas where the schools belong to different areas, and they have some a structure, and we work together with that structure as well, because they set out resources for the schools as well. So we need, that's for sure. But what we can do together with the teachers is to build good materials and practices that are easy and not time consuming. I know that is difficult, because I also said we need to address the individual needs of the children and not a whole approach. But again, if we put in a lot of good examples, and we work this out with the teachers and the pedagogues out there in the schools, I think we can at least do some nudging to get the teachers towards a more inclusive approach in the teaching style. But of course, it's not easy, and we need to focus on the whole perspective, and also time, resources, and collaboration with all the other institutions close to the schools. I hope this was answer enough. It's a really big question, and I could go on for hours on this topic.
Of course.
Here.
But maybe just to close a bit the circle, and our next conference in October will be about families, and empowering families, and the self-determination and so on. So Eva, you put in this nice I think it was a school, right? Not a house. Of course, there is this element of the family. So can you tell a bit more on how in your methods the families are involved, and how you see their role on this?
Well, we cannot, it's not only families, it's also the community around school. And we just want to make sure that the teachers and schools know how to work with the families, because we put the responsibility for reaching out into schools, and then there's a lot. We all know, like, how you approach parents, how you tell parents that their child needs support, how you achieve this support together, what is best for their child, and what everyone can do about that. What parents can do in the school. I think these sort of things. Whether their opinion and knowledge matters. Do they participate in the joint committee on evaluation and assessment of the child? Who has the last word? All these things, they are important.
Absolutely.
And then how you do the teacher parents meeting also is another indicator, how you do them. What's the atmosphere? Is it friendly? Is it cozy? Is it one-on-one? Is it in a groups? It's a lot.
Yeah, and then we are always talking about people, and with feelings, with challenges, personal challenges. So that's the most complicated part, for sure. We are at the end of our session. I don't know if you have questions for each other also, hearing about what the other practices are doing or not doing, since our audience is a bit shy today. Otherwise, I will thank you all for the all very interesting. Of course, it's like a glimpse of what you do, and to describe all the practices in 10 minutes, 15 minutes is never easy. That's why also we invite you and the participants to participate to the other events and conferences that we have, so that you can again meet and have more time to discuss and share and talk about what you do, what the other do, to exchange. Maybe to close, a very little thing about building an inclusive school every year, and Joao is one of the representative of the project, the program that we have. But this year we had the 10th edition of a training called Building an Inclusive School for All, that EASPD is supporting, and the new edition will be launched very soon, will be in Madrid next year. Date still to be defined, but this is open to teachers, to any actor that is interested in learning and knowing more on how to make their schools more inclusive. Joao, I don't know if you want to say like a couple of words, because you know better the program, being involved from the very beginning. The dates are 18-24 April. So
Yes, and Eva is also one of the trainers. So you'll have me, you'll have Eva, you'll have also Anami and Marlene, and hopefully 20 plus motivated participants. Normally it's very theoretical and practical. Visits to inclusive education sites and a lot of group work and group reflections. So it's kind of also a motivation boost for the participants. So I'm happy to be in this new edition again.
yes, so we will come very soon with more information for anyone that want to participate. So thank you to you all once again, and I hope to see you soon. And for the next Knowledge Café, there will be the last edition of the year in November. And also for this, we will launch quite soon the date and the topic. So thank you very much for being here and spending this time with us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.